Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone to please give a like and subscribe down below if you enjoy this content. We greatly appreciate it. We have Snowy Decaen on the show with us. She is coming to us all the way from Ohio, but she's the Miss Detroit Classic Bikini Champion. And also, when you're going to look on her Instagram page, which we'll leave the link down below, make sure to get some Bang Energy. I highly, highly recommend it. It's very good stuff. I drink it all the time. But Snowy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that more healthy and fit lifestyle?
So I've always been active my whole life. And then my senior year of high school, I was unable to participate in sports that year due to, I ended up getting a couple jobs. I worked 2 jobs my senior year and I stopped being active. And by the time summer came around, I had been the heaviest I've ever been in my life. I wasn't quite fat yet. I wouldn't say that I was fat, but I had gotten chunky. But the thing that really stuck out to me this one day was I was unathletic anymore. I couldn't run the way I used to run. I couldn't, play volleyball and jump and had my vertical and everything like that. And so I started my freshman year of college and still wasn't able to find time to be active. I was still trying to balance, being a new college student and having my own schedule of classes and then having, a job. And then around probably November, so about a semester in, I had finally the one day had enough. I went to the student activities building and was going to play with some of my classmates. And it was just I just felt so embarrassed. I was trying to play volleyball and I was red and puffy faced and just completely out of breath. And I'm like, this is enough. I really need to go back to being active. And that whole time I had ate pretty well. I'd never really eaten too bad. I've never really had too bad of a diet. So just from being inactive, it really, really hurt my body and my overall health. So I signed up for my first gym membership, the next day at Endurance Fitness. It's in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And I started running around 1 a.m. every night at the gym because I had to have class all day. And then around 2 or 3 o'clock, between 2 to 5, it was like a swing shift. I would go into work and I would get out between 11 to 1 a.m., depending on when I went in. So when I would get out of work, I would go to the gym and I would just run for an hour or two. Typically about an hour and 15 is what I'd make it. So after about 3 months of doing that, I had lost all the weight that I had put on, and I was smaller than what I was when I was in high school. And I decided, after being in the gym and seeing all these girls in there lifting, because on the weekends I get to go during normal hours, and I'd just see people in there and I'd just watch them lift while I ran, and it started to really spark my interest. And I was super small, and I'm I want to put some muscle and some meat on my bones. I want to feel like if someone was going to kidnap me, I might be able to kick their ass or something. So I started slowly experimenting in the gym, the weight room, with the dumbbells and the machines. It took me longer to touch a dumbbell than what it did a machine. But I started lifting, and it was all self-taught. I would literally just watch someone do a movement or on a machine, and I would just mimic what they did. I never asked for help. I was much too shy. But as the years went along, I became more and more comfortable, and now here I am today, 3 years later, competing and everything. And that was simply because the girls that I used to watch at my college gym, some of them were competitors, and I just was in awe about how they would go from being what I thought was in shape and athletic during their off season to just in the summer when I saw them a couple months later, they were shredded. I'm I want to be like those girls one day. So that's basically how it all started, was just I wasn't able to be active my senior year and gain some weight, and I realized how important it is to be active, and I'm never going to stop being active.
Absolutely. That is a great story. And I always got to ask my guests that I have on, when you were starting with the weightlifting, I always say that if you were to walk into one gym with 100 people in it, there's 100 different ways that people do their stuff. There's 100 different exercises that they do. There's 100 different ways that they do reps. There's 100 different ways that they do nutrition. How tough was that for you personally, figuring out what best worked for your body, knowing now that everyone's body's so much different when it comes to what they need in order to look the way they look?
I think at first, like I said, when I first started lifting, I had no idea. I was just proud that I was, touching the lateral raise or going over the cross cable machine. So at first I had no idea, and I don't think I really knew what to do or how I should be programmed until probably about this last year, when it's my second year into competing and I started to really understand. what kind of physique you need to have and how you need to look for bikini. And that was really just sitting down with my coach and talking and understanding like my body and how it needs to look, and seeing like, looking at Miss Olympia, Angelica, and seeing her body and how it looks and mine compared to that. So it wasn't something I think that anybody really figures out the first time they walk into a gym. I think it's something that you slowly learn, and it keeps adapting over time, because how you want to look will probably keep changing. I did a powerlifting meet for the first time. I did some powerlifting meets, and I decided I never wanted to do those again because of how they changed my body. They really made me like thicker. They didn't make me like manly or beefy, but they just made everything thick and very full all the time, because you're really exercising them to the max, and you're feeding yourself a lot of food so that you can lift all that weight. And I didn't learn that I didn't need to lift that way, or don't want to lift that way, because of doing it first, seeing the results, and then changing. So I don't really feel like you can really know what you want to do or find that program for you until you maybe dabble and experiment in couple different things and see the results, and then you kind of know what to do and where to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And also, one of the big myths that we love to bust on this show is that, I mean, it's gotten better, I'd say, over the last 5 years with Instagram and everything, but women still have that fear, some of them, that if they walk into the gym and they touch one weight, they're going to Hulk out and just become Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson overnight. They're just going to all of a sudden put on like 50 pounds. Did you have that fear when you were starting out in the gym? And if so, how did you overcome it? And then if you're working with people, or people that have that fear, what is your main response to them when they say that?
I never experienced that issue myself, because like I said, when I first started going to the gym, I was only running at night, and I got teeny tiny. Actually, my latest post on Instagram has a side-by-side comparison, and you can see how small I am. It was just small. I think I weighed what I weighed like in junior high in the right photo. So I was really small, and I didn't feel unhealthy, but I felt like if someone was gonna kidnap me again at this point, I was headed into like my sophomore year of college. So I was living alone in a college town in my own apartment. So like I wanted to feel like I could protect myself. And so that's why I wanted to start gaining some muscle and getting stronger. So for me, I never walked in and had that fear of being like, I'm going to pick up a weight and be Dwayne Johnson or the Hulk. But I wanted to pick a weight up and feel like I could pick that weight up, and it wasn't hard. So, but when I meave people who have that fear, my biggest thing is showing them my own story, and I show them photos like this is, I have it all documented basically on my Instagram. It's what's so great about Instagram. You just post things and then go back to it and show people. I show people like the first time I ever saw my bicep and what it looked like. I have pictures of when I first started seeing some ab definition or some like quad definition, and everybody, when they see them, they're like, oh, that was 6 months after you consistently training, or that was 3 months after me consistently training my bicep. Do I look like the Hulk right there? No, I barely have a chicken wing.
Yeah.
So having proof myself of going through the process and showing people, it really like shuts their doubts out that you're ever going to Hulk up. The only way you're going to Hulk up after just a couple of months of lifting is if you're on some juice or some steroids.
Absolutely.
That's just how the woman's body, especially for women, that's not how our bodies work. We have a lot of estrogen. We're not going to look the way a man looks unless we alter or take some special supplements to look that way.
And for any of the doubters out there who are going to prove it wrong in 5 seconds, could you give us a flex real quick? And I was going to say, does she look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Does she look like the Hulk? Yeah. And look she's been working out for that long. Really? Come on, people. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I always tell the story. I was in college too. Like I was telling her before we started this podcast, I was in college too when I really started, adapting that more healthy and fit lifestyle. And one of my friends, she would always say like, oh, whenever I'd go to the gym, she'd say like, oh, I really want to go with you, but I'm just afraid. I don't want to get too bulky. I don't want to get too big. And then I finally just snapped one night and said, look, the purse that you carry when we go to clubs or go to bars weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in that gym. And you're carrying that around all the time, and you're not getting bulky. You're not getting huge. And then she's like, oh yeah, you're right. So then she finally went in, and it's one of those things that I say with a lot of things. Just walking in there, and when you touch that first weight and you realize that it's not going to happen, I mean, that's just the most important thing to do. It's just really, really a huge thing to just get in there and just sort of try it out yourself. And another big myth that I really love to bust is that a lot of people always say, or especially women again, that they're afraid that there's like these big 400-pound guys in the weight room that are just going to be super intimidating, and they're going to, maybe talk smack to them or, give them a hard time. And I always tell them, those guys usually are some of the nicest people on earth. First of all, like the really big guys, if you want to just go up and talk to them. And secondly, 99.9% of the people in the gym don't even know that you exist because they're too busy focusing on themselves and their own workout. So, but especially you being in a college town and probably going to a college gym like what I started out with, was that a fear of yours? Because like college gyms can be full of guys that might be a little more loud and obnoxious and just out of it.
I actually I didn't have the fear of uh the whole like intimidation thing. I actually had the fear of just going in there and looking stupid because I didn't know what to do. And that's why I said like I would be on the treadmill or I would go on a machine or something that I knew how to properly do, and I would like watch other girls do lifts. I would like stare at them intently and like completely watch, watch their knees, watch their feet, how they're pointed, if they're doing like a leg workout or something. And I would just watch them and then just try and mimic them perfectly. So like that was my biggest fear, was just performing things incorrectly and being made fun of or having people like snicker at you basically. So I'm like, what would happen in high school, if the teacher called on you and you answered a question wrong and your classmates laugh at you. So that was kind of like my fear. And I realized shortly after joining and doing it all that it was a complete opposite, and probably gyms are probably the most welcoming, like full of the most welcoming, most supportive individuals you'll ever meet, because I guarantee you every single person in there like me was at one point, didn't look like how they looked at one point, and they were exactly a beginner just like you are, and they're more than happy to help you. Like I wish looking back I would have just walked up to half those girls and asked them to show me like proper form or how to do it, and I would have learned so much faster. But instead I was just so scared I would watch from like the corner and then go mimic them. So
Yeah.
I couldn't say it. Like gyms are literally full, like the most supportive people. They're very motivated. They're just like they've been where you've been. If you're overweight and you're trying to lose weight, I guarantee every person in there has been overweight and they've overcome that obstacle. There's no better people to look up to or ask for help or where to start if you're having health or like fitness issues that need to be addressed in your life. Just walk into a gym and ask any person, because we've all been there.
Absolutely. I have my own sort of intimidation story. When I started working out also like in high school freshman year, because for football, you always got to go in and lift weights. But my older brother was probably the most successful quarterback at my entire high school's history, and he was a senior when I was a freshman. So going in there the summer before freshman year and working out, everyone would be looking at you and just be like, oh, what's Nolan Johnson's younger brother going to be like when he's working out? So that was my own sort of intimidation, but it did get better, as the year went on. And then I did, just realize, just go up and ask questions. Absolutely 100%. But what was your nutrition like when you started just running on the track? Did your nutrition change at all?
It changed slightly. I would say I stopped eating out at that point. Like I said, my diet's always been pretty healthy. I think when I got to college, I ate out a little bit more because I just I didn't always have the time, between classes. It was just running to the cafeteria in the school or something, or just right across the street to Wendy's or whatever. So I stopped eating out at like fast food restaurants then, and I still don't. I mean, I haven't had Taco Bell since I was a junior in high school, and there's a couple other places that I haven't had since that like freshman year of high school. So that was probably about the only thing that really changed. So
at what point did you really decide to step the nutrition up? Was it after a certain, like how long into weightlifting did you really say like, hey, I really got to, step up my nutrition and maybe eat more protein? At what point did that happen?
That happened probably a year after I started lifting. It would have been right after I graduated college. About a year and a half, and it was because I was starting, after like posting things online, I was getting some photographers that wanted to shoot me, and I was like, oh man, I should like really clean up my diet for this shoot. And I would like prep for like 4 weeks beforehand, where I would, stick to what I thought then was a stricter diet. And then my diet since then has only became more dialed in once I started to get into like bikini and competing and things like that.
At what point in your journey did you also decide to compete? Was that early on when you started weightlifting, or did it sort of take a while and then you're just like, hey, I look good enough, maybe I should give this a try?
It was something that when I was just running and wasn't lifting yet, how I had mentioned there were some girls in there that was lifting and competing. I didn't know at the time that they were competitors. I was just watching them, and for those first 3 months where I lost all that weight without lifting anything, I watched this one girl go from, like I said, not being fat or thick, but just looking healthy and athletic, to all of a sudden 3 months later, she came into the gym and she was just shredded. And I couldn't believe it, but basically for 3 months, I watched her transform right in front of my own eyes without realizing it until that day, like it hit me. And she was super tan and everything, and she had these like glass or clear heels. And I finally went up and asked her like what she was doing, and she told me she was a competitor, and I was just like in shock. And then I, went online, and I had never heard of I have heard of bodybuilding, but I've never looked into it or anything. So for about 3 hours, I got lost on the internet about competing, and I fell in love with it right then and there. And I told myself that if I ever could afford to compete, I would do it, because when I looked it up and all the costs that were involved, I was like, yeah, there's no way I can afford that right now. I'm a broke college student. So it basically, I had wanted to start competing since about my sophomore year of college, and I didn't compete or start my first prep for competition until a year after I graduated. So it was a year into my first like professional career job and had the money to do it.
Yeah. So when you did your first prep, I always love to hear, what was that experience like? Because we have so many people on here who always talk about, even when you're, starting out working out and your nutrition might be the cleanest of all time, nothing really compares to your prep nutrition. That's when you like really step it up a notch, really take it into the next year. What was your first prep like? What was that experience?
I think that's probably the funnest prep I've ever had. Because you don't know what to expect and you have no expectations and you don't know how hard it is or how easy it's going to be. So you're just like, oh, is this a hard day? I don't really know, but you're just like so excited because you're doing your first competition and you're so like focused and zoned in on the goal of just wanting to like, you see all these girls online, you're like, I'm gonna look like that when I'm done, so I have to eat like exactly like this and I'm gonna like it. I think it was a lot of fun. It was definitely my most fun because I kind of went in with that attitude of I'm super excited, like what do I get to do today? Starve again? Woo! Because I thought I was gonna come out looking like one of those girls on Instagram, but it takes years to come out looking like them. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of learning because again, it was the first time that I was doing such an intense diet. It really helped me learn what affects my body and what doesn't affect my body for food, what my stomach digests easy, what makes it blow. So it was a huge learning experience, and it was a giant experiment too because my coach, obviously it was her first time coaching me. She didn't know it reacted to my body, so it was a big experiment. Like, go out and eat this kind of beef or go eat a salmon and wake up the next morning and take pictures to see how the fat in the salmon affected your body. And it was so cool to see like, an 8-hour difference in my physique just because of something I ate. It was a huge difference. So it was a lot of fun. I was super excited because again, I went into it thinking I was going to come out looking like one of those girls, and that didn't happen, but I did really well in my show. And, it was a big learning process, especially with the food.
I always say that if you were to poll the general population and ask them, what percentage of you would you think would like be willing to go on stage and show off, you would get probably like 3%. Like it's not a lot of people would have the guts and courage to do that. Was that something that you really had to convince yourself to do, knowing that like, hey, I'm going to have to get up basically in a bikini in front of all of these people? Was that a thing that you were nervous about? Or was it like some people that we have on the show who just say like, you know what, I work my butt off, I'm going to show it off?
So at first, I was extremely nervous. And the only thing I feel like that helped me with that first show, as I mentioned, once I lost a bunch of weight, I had some photographers contact me and want to do some photo shoots. And I think those photo shoots helped me because you basically kind of are doing the same thing, showing off your body, right? And those photo shoots landed me a couple more gigs at this. For my first show, I was actually living in Chicago. So I was out in Chicago and I had submitted a couple of those shoots, the photos for some like other gigs. And I was out in Chicago. I was getting, probably like every month I was getting a gig and landing it to do some modeling. So I feel like all the modeling I did kind of really helped with those nerves of, basically being half naked, showing off your body on stage. I was super nervous. It was an issue. And, I feel like the only thing that really helped me at that time was all the modeling that I did. It probably would have helped a lot more if I was a part of like a team or some sort of or going somewhere and like practicing my posing in front of people rather than just myself in my apartment, because I would record the video and send it to my coach. I did an online coach at that time. So it probably would help a lot more. My advice to be to someone would be to like go to posing classes where you're posing in a group. But I would say for my second show, after I got done with my first show, that my attitude changed to that. And I realized, and it was because of the feedback from the judge. They told me that I had a second place body, but with fifth place posing.
Jeez.
And that they placed me low because my posing was so bad. And I was so upset. I'm like, you got to tell me that for the last 3 months, I worked so hard and I ruined it because of my posing. I'm like, this is never going to happen again. I'm going to go out there and freaking own this shit. And like, I worked way too hard to not own it for that 1 minute that you get up there to show it off. So ever since that judge told me that, my attitude, and I think for a lot of competitors after their first time, they realize their posing probably ruined their placement. And we all work way too hard to let posing and those nerves ruin it. Like, it's part of it. You got to just get out there and own it.
Now, you and me genetically are probably very, very pale, as you can see right here. We're not the tannest people around. So what was that first experience like, putting that tan on and seeing everything pop out? Like, we've had so many people that say, like, to see all those muscles pop out, to see muscles that you didn't even think you had pop out. What was that first time you put on the tanner like?
It was shocking. I'm like speechless. I almost don't have words to describe it, because it really is like, wow, everything finally came together when this tan came on. Where did all this come from? Because it really does help, show everything. And getting the tan itself, if you're not doing it yourself, which I bet probably nobody's doing it themselves, is a shocking process.
We've heard plenty times about that.
Yeah,
yes.
I had no idea that you get naked and do it with a bunch of other naked people, let alone possibly be doing it with dudes on the other side with just the like little tents facing the opposite way, so you're like ducking and weaving so nobody sees you naked other than the girls. So that was like shock. That was like boom. I walked in and I was like trying to turn around and walk out, and the spray tan lady basically grabbed me by my ponytail and dragged me back. I was like, no, help.
Yeah. When I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, I never knew that. But that was probably, one of the most interesting things we've heard from all of our health and fitness guests we've had on. And like I said previously, we have a lot of up-and-coming musicians on the podcast, and I always love to ask them, what was that feeling like performing live? What is that experience like? A lot of people describe it like a drug unlike any other, and I think that also can apply to our competitors that we have on the show. What is that feeling like when you step on stage and get to show off all of that hard work that you've been working for the past months, or however long you've trained?
I would describe it physically. It's that feeling where you don't have any control of your muscles when you come off of a roller coaster. Does that make sense? Have you ever gotten off a roller coaster and like everything just feels like jello, and you literally couldn't flex a single muscle on you and support yourself because you were just so intense during the entire ride that your muscles are just completely spent? That's how you feel physically coming off the stage. You're up there posing. The guys in bodybuilding are flexing their asses off. Like you're
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, like you're literally putting everything you can into every single turn and twist.
So what did you have post-show after your first show for a meal? Beef
and dessert. So it doesn't really matter. I've gone back and forth between a burger and a steak. But it's always beef, and then with some sort of dessert. So
yeah, is there any ideal place that you like to go to?
No, it always changes because I always go to a different city. Typically during peak week, I will look up like the best restaurants in the area, and I'll have like a game plan for where I want to go. So
I always love to, sort of talk about prep brain, because most people don't understand that when you're dieting and go through all of that, your mind can get a little foggy, especially in the last few weeks. You can get a little dazed. Could you kind of explain to the audience out there who's never done that, what that sort of feels like when you've had your body go through all of that training and nutrition and just that whole process, what that feels like towards the end when you're getting ready to go to a show?
You're kind of just like a space cadet. Your mind is just wandering on everything that it shouldn't be wandering on. Like, if you're at work and you're supposed to be focusing on work, I bet you're online on Pinterest looking at food. And when you're not, staring at the computer, you're staring off of the wall thinking about, how in the next couple of weeks you're going to get to do X, Y, and Z that you haven't gotten to do. Your mind is just basically on everything else in the entire world with random thoughts that it's not supposed to be on. And it's just because, the lack of carbs and the energy needs to be elsewhere. It's literally your body's fueling your muscles and not your brain at that point.
Yeah, we've had so many stories about that, and I just find it super, super fascinating. So one of the big questions that I love to ask on the show is that people don't realize is that when you guys are doing your shows, you sort of manipulate your body through all the working out, through all the dieting, into looking a certain way that isn't sustainable. Like, you're not going to look that way when you're a week out or 2 weeks after the show. What is that like for you, or how do you prepare yourself mentally knowing that, like, all of that hard work that you do is not sustainable, and that within even days afterwards you are going to put on weight? Has that been a hard thing for you to sort of adjust to?
I wouldn't say so, and I think it's because I knew that going into this. I think a lot of people who have an issue with gaining the weight back that following week, because you literally do get it back within a week, if not within days, depending on how hard you go that night and the morning of that night and the next morning after the show, when you finally get to have, your first meal of whatever you want, you could gain all your weight back literally that night. So I think if you go into a show and your first prep and your coach doesn't tell you, like, hey, listen, you're going to get to really low body fat and you're not going to be able to maintain this longer than a day or two. If you don't have a coach like telling you, like, this is what happens and being real with you and upfront, yeah, you might have like huge issues with it. And typically when I see a lot of girls who won't compete again or had a bad experience, it's typically because their coach didn't like forewarn them of how the process is. They didn't tell them, like, yeah, you're literally for probably 12 weeks just going to wake up, go to work, eat, and work out. Like, that's going to be your life. Like, you have to be super scheduled. Or, if they didn't have a good time at the show, it's because their coach didn't warn them, like, hey, you're spray tan, you're going to be naked with a bunch of people. I hope you're okay with that. Hey, you're going to be backstage with a bunch of stinky people and spray tan stuffing rice cakes down their mouth. Like, I feel like if you have a bad experience during prep, at the show, or in your reverse diet, like post show, it's because your coach did not like warn you and prepare you for what was going to happen. I think if you're mentally, like, anybody, if they blew up like 15 pounds in a day, like, yeah, this is going to make anyone upset, right? But I know going into it, like, hey, within 2 days after my show, my weight's going to be, back up to my normal body weight. And I'm okay with that. It's just to make sure that, follow the reverse diet and to make sure I don't go over what my normal weight is.
Absolutely. It's always one of those things. We hear so many stories about people. Like, we had a girl on here that put on 30 pounds over like a week afterwards. And it's you really got to be careful with that type of stuff. And I really just love to hear people see that, because a lot of people see the people that compete and then they're just thinking like, oh, they must look like that all the time. They must just be shredded all the time. But they don't realize, no, it is an entire process. But when you won the Miss Detroit Classic Bikini, what was that experience like?
That was a lot of fun. That show in general, that whole day, it was just plain fun. It was very relaxing. It wasn't stressful. I think that's probably my first show that was that stress-free. It was like I woke up in the morning, everything went perfectly right. I got to the show, everything was going perfectly smooth. Typically that doesn't happen. Like, Ubers are late, or you're late to this, you're missing that, this is broke, like, and you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to get hair and makeup done. You messed up your spray tan. Like, none of that happened. It was just basically kicking it backstage with my coach and my team and just waiting to go on. It was the way like a show probably should go, how it should go for somebody, but they never go that way. And I think the biggest thing when you win an overall for the first time, or you don't really, nobody tells you what you're supposed to do on stage. So you're kind of, I think it would be great if somebody could just compile a bunch of people winning an overall their first time and just like put it all together, kind of like a blooper reel, because it would probably be a lot of us just standing there like, what do we do? Do we walk off now? Do I shake you? Do I hug you? Like, it's awesome, but it's awkward at the same time. So you don't know what to do. Like, if you're supposed to pick the trophy up and put your hands up, it's kind of funny. because I'm pretty sure when I won my overall, I did like 360 probably like 4 times because I wasn't sure where to go or what to do.
So you mentioned before that you did struggle with posing a lot, and almost everyone that we have on the show struggles with posing. It's just one of those things where, and you always need to improve on it. There's always ways to get better. What would you say was the hardest part about posing when you were starting out that you really had trouble like getting a hold of?
I think it's finding, oh God, everything really, when I think about it. It's first off posing. Nobody in the entire world except for bodybuilders and bikini people you're ever gonna put your body in that position. So the first time you're ever doing posing, you're literally putting your body into a position or twerking in such a way that it's never done it before. So it's quite painful. I mean, you have to really turn your back and move it certain ways and arch your hips and things. So you're a different kind of sore you get a different kind of sore and your muscles lock up from posing, and it makes it really hard because you never like put your body in that position before. And then the second thing that makes posing hard is not only are you trying to twist your body in a certain way that you've never done before, but you also have to do it in a sassy way. You have to be, you have to have some sort of personality to it, and the only thing you really want to do is make an angry face, like just insert an angry emoji while you're doing it because it's painful and your muscles are locking up while you're doing it. But you have to be smiling and like flirty and kind of sassy, and figuring out how to do that and hide the pain and the awkwardness from when you're first doing it's tough.
Now, I'm going to break the hearts of basically every guy watching this. She is in a relationship, everyone. So I am a huge hopeless romantic at heart, so I love to ask these 3 questions to all of our guests. So how did you and your boyfriend first meet?
Oh my goodness, this is like its own podcast. So again, going back to college, how I had mentioned that I was getting some like photographers wanting to do like photo shoots with me when I first lost my weight. One of them was this gym apparel company in Detroit, Michigan called Gym Culture. They reached out to me and said they were going to send me some of their clothing, and they had a photographer in the area that was going to come shoot me. And so we met because that company ended up putting us all in a group chat together on Instagram, and he was a part of it, and he's from Cleveland, Ohio. And we, everybody in there, all of us models and ambassadors became really good friends, and he and I kind of hit it off. Like our personalities just clicked, like we had that same sense of humor. And for about 3 years, we were just like basically all through my college years, he and I were friends, from hitting each other up like on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat. It was, like just sending each other like, hey, check like lifting in the GK like gear or whatever. And then right before I moved to Chicago, my grandmother passed away, and he called me the day that she passed away. It was the first time we ever spoke on the phone, and he just called me to, give his condolences. We ended up just talking on the phone for a couple of hours. I thought it was just the sweetest thing that this guy that I'd never met, but we had been friends for such a long time due to being a part of the same company, went out of his way to just, give his condolences. And again, that just goes to show how like welcoming the fitness community is. And then I moved to Chicago, and he continued, we continued our friendship, but he was kind of, I had given him my number, and he was texting me, and basically our friendship just grew and grew, but we had never met because now I'm living in Chicago. He lives in Cleveland. Fast forward a couple months, he had a powerlifting meet in Columbus, and I decided that I wanted to surprise him and thank him for all of his support, when my grandma had passed, and I drove down and surprised him. So that's how we ended up meeting for the first time, was me surprising him.
That's awesome. So now we are fortunate enough to be joined by Snowy's boyfriend. Could you introduce yourself and sort of give us a little bit of backstory on how you got sort of into the healthy and fit lifestyle?
Sure. My name is Frank Desico. I've been in fitness and into the healthy fitness lifestyle since I was a kid. I have pictures of myself when I was just about a year old, with my dad, in my little drawers, doing some push-ups and whatnot. So, I mean, for me, it dates back as long as I can possibly remember, and walk for that matter. So, passion and fitness, has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, like I said. And so when I got into school, I went to the University of Notre Dame. I played baseball there. Was fortunate enough to play for 4 years. And after that, I ended up playing a little bit professionally around here in Cleveland. And again, that's where, for me, the detail in the fitness industry started to really take its toll, to where I wanted to do a little bit more with it. And, like I said, take a little bit of that fitness into a gym setting and do a little bit more with that. And the athlete setting was something I was a part of. The health and fitness side for the gym was something I wanted to get into. So with coupling the athlete side with the gym side was something like I said, I wanted to do. So it kind of just came to fruition about 3 years ago. So here I am now with the gym, Ohio Sports and Fitness, 3 years old, October 4th. We had a little grand reopening. We kind of did some remodeling in the place. It looks fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better support system around me, including this girl sitting next to me, amongst others. But it's been an awesome journey. Fitness is a journey. So I think it's incredible that not only, poetically, my life within itself is a journey, as well as the fitness journey that everyone's on themselves, which I think is an incredible, beautiful thing. So.
Yeah. Everyone shout out to his gym. I'll leave a link down below if you're in the Ohio area. Definitely go and check it out. Now, I got to ask, because part of my backstory was that I was a baseball player in high school, and then I got hurt my senior year, so I wasn't able to play in college. What position did you play in baseball?
So I played shortstop pretty much throughout my career in high school. I had a really good arm, but I was a short guy. So I knew inevitably when I got onto the college level, I was going to end up being a second baseman, and that's where I played all 4 years actually at second base for the University of Notre Dame. And then when I got into the pro ball, I kind of bounced around a little bit. I played center field. I'm fast. And then I played a little bit of right field actually too with my arm, and then again second base. So
yeah, and then my older brother was also a catcher, and he played a couple of years in the minors too. So that was a lot of fun going around and watching him play. But I got to ask you two. I mean, you're from Cleveland. How depressed do you get this time of year watching the Browns play?
Hey, and I don't know if that question really applies.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say they're what two. I'm a Vikings fan because I'm from Minnesota, and they have I think the same record as the Vikings now. So they're actually coming together now. I think
we are. You know what? It's actually exciting. Every Sunday we have our Sundays together, and we like to sit on the couch or go wherever and watch the game. And I gotta say, I'm truly excited every week now. Not just inevitably knowing at the end, hey, the Browns are going to lose. It was almost like, let's watch the Browns to see how badly they screw up this week. This time it's now, okay, we have Baker Mayfield. We have some pretty good athletic weapons around him. Let's see what we can do. And truthfully, we should be like 4-1 right now. But hey, beggars can't be choosers at this point. We're happy with what we can take. So
absolutely. And then I love to ask, especially people that have their gyms and own their gyms, what would you say is the biggest excuse that you usually hear from people who don't want to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle? What is usually their biggest excuse that they give you?
I mean, the first thing that popped in my head was a story that, I had an individual that came into my gym a while back, and she wanted to get into personal training. And I gave her some pricing points, just like anyone would, right? And to be honest with her, we're on the lower end of most price points for personal training or anything like that. And, immediately she was kind of turned off by the fact that, man, I didn't know I had to invest so much. And, my thought on that is, people don't realize when you're looking to better yourself, what an investment it is in yourself. And yes, it is financially, somewhat kind of hard for people to tie that together, that, oh, I didn't realize that it's a long-term lifestyle change as opposed to just this magic pill that people believe that it is. And that I may need to sacrifice going out to eat 3 or 4 times more a month, or I need to not go to the bar and spend $100. And that's what people don't realize is, man, I'm going to spend $140 a month on personal training versus spending $100 on one bar tab for one night. And, I always go back to the saying, either a $30 gym membership or a $30 bottle of vodka. I think for me, that's the thing. The people that really understand that, are the ones that aren't really willing to make that or see that they're not invested in themselves. Therefore, it's not going to work. So.
Absolutely. And then one of the big things we always hear is time as well is just a huge thing. People always say they don't have enough time, and I always respond to that saying, I've had nurses and I've had doctors on here that do 12-hour shifts, and they're still able to do it. And we were talking to Snowy previously about how she would go and run at 1 a.m. So it's all about commitment. It's all about, just wanting it. you can always find a way. We all operate on the same 24-hour schedule. I mean, unless you're like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who I really think might operate on like a 26 or 27, just because the stuff that he's able to do is the stuff that he's able to do. I don't get how he has the time for that. But yeah, absolutely. And then we haven't really had someone really talk, but for guys, what would you say is the best piece of advice you would give guys who want to adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle?
I think initially for guys are, especially nowadays with the health and fitness industry really taking its, positive kind of adaptations. I think that for guys, just innately, we want to have this mantra about us to where we are the bigger, stronger kind of personality. So guys are really into that strength type of aspects to their lifestyle or their lifting. Make sure that you're doing it correctly. Technique, I think, is the biggest thing that I can, promote or give to the guys that come into my gym. A lot of guys will come in and they'll start throwing weights around, and sure enough, 2 weeks, they're hurt for 2 weeks, and then they've lost everything they've gained. Why? Because they're doing things the wrong way. So really pay attention as guys. Again, we don't follow instructions. Anytime we get something delivered to the house, we don't follow instructions. We just go, hey, I'm going to put it together as long as, as long as I get it together, that's good enough for me. We have that mantra about us. So, I think for me, being able to take that step back and understand it's not necessarily about the weight, but about the technique, and to be able to really understand the longevity of that is an important aspect that a lot of guys, I think, overlook. And if you can have that be your foundation, I think the end is really, ceilingless or endless for you. So.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What would you say is the big nutritional difference between you and her when it comes to eating? What type of foods, do you ever eat any different foods to sort of maintain? I mean, obviously guys are going to be usually a lot bigger and stronger. Are there any nutrition things that you have differently than hers?
I think probably this past prep for her was the biggest noticeable change in our diets. And truthfully, when we live together now, she goes through a prep. I kind of go through the same thing with her. My schedule kind of adapts to what she needs, which is great. So it gets me kind of in a structure as well. But, my goals are to gain weight, to gain strength, to gain muscle. And I do somewhat of a different lifting style in that power building type of mindset. So with that being said, a lot of my nutrition is based on, making sure that my body is fueled properly with the right carbohydrates. So, jasmine rice and her cream of wheat are staples in mine as well, but they're more snacks. They're more supplements to the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the red skin potatoes, even the white rice to a certain extent.
I'd say that like his carb intake is probably double of what mine is. He's eating what I eat, the healthier carbs, but then he's also getting those extra serving of carbs from like potatoes and things like that. But then meat wise, our meats are about the same, but he gets fattier meats. So he gets like that chuck beef, and then he's getting salmon, whereas I'm getting 99% lean ground turkey and, white fish. So he definitely has like more, his carbs are probably double or triple what mine is. But then he also gets fats, whereas I don't get fats. I think that's probably like the biggest difference in our diets between the two. Is he just gets fattier meats that help keep him full.
By all means, I still eat the chickens and the lean turkey, but again, it's more of that snack because I burn it so quickly that my body feeds well on the beets and the salmons or your fattier fishes that stay with me longer and I fuel longer. I'll have a whole package of rice cakes during my workouts. I just did that yesterday. Again, just that intra fuel is a little bit something different too, as opposed to her where she's more fasted in certain situations as well.
So now we get to the point in our podcast, which is the audience favorite and my personal favorite, the little questionnaire where we're going to ask our guests about a dozen questions and get their answers and see how they stack up to everyone else. So this is questions that they both can answer. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh, go ahead.
My go-to workout song right now is probably Young Blood. I don't know.
I couldn't even, if you were to ask me what her workout song go-to was, I couldn't tell you. I'm glad we both just realized that at the same time.
What's yours?
Oh, you know what mine is. Mine's the plug walk all day long. I'll put the plug walk on 3 or 4 times on repeat, and I'll just stand in my gym. Everyone knows when it goes on, they just start looking at me because that's my jam. So
I'm an old school guy where I personally got to get me like some Metallica or some Rage Against the Machine. But here's the problem is that I got to wait for the beat to drop. So sometimes I'll be like doing lat pull downs and I got to wait like 20 seconds for the beat to drop. So then everyone's just staring at me and they're like, what's this guy doing? He hasn't even done anything yet. And then you got to wait for the beat to get down and then get it done. So that's my personal preference. But now going on to our second question, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
I would probably say The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
She's taking the easy route there.
Yep.
The Rock's a good one. I don't disagree with that. But, I just got to go with a guy that I've respected my whole life. And, again, looking at it more from just the athletic side as well as a fitness side. It's just someone that carries themselves, in my opinion, so well and is such a professional in everything he's done, which is Derek Jeter, which you wouldn't think so much as to think, fitness with Derek Jeter. But, he played 20-some years in MLB. Obviously, there's longevity there. There's something he's doing right within his program and within the way that went about his daily business to make it work. So I think it would be interesting to see how he was so successful. And being someone that, isn't the fastest, isn't the strongest guy, but was able to do things that, some of those guys that are fast and strong were able to do. So I think it would be interesting.
Absolutely. I saw Derek Jeter one time, actually, when I was in New York with my family. We were there for a trip. We saw him at a restaurant. We didn't go up or do anything, but that was a really, really cool experience. For me personally, I'd probably just choose like the most basic answer ever, Arnold. I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is by far our most popular answer. Like 90% of the time people say that, so we do get that a lot. But now for our third question, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh. Who would I want to train? I feel like I'd want to train. I don't know. Wow, you go first. Let me think about this.
I mean, the two that popped in my head are J-Lo and Jennifer Aniston, for the simple reason that they are older women that, again, have shown and proven to look better with age. Yes. What are they doing? I want to be responsible for that. Even if it's one time, I want people to go, oh my gosh, you're making them look amazing. Yes, I'm making them look amazing. When really, it's just their genes.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say Kevin Hart, because it would probably be the funnest training session of my life. I would be able to stop laughing.
That is, again, our most popular answer, and I would agree with that too. The only thing is you wouldn't be able to get a workout in because it would be so funny, where it would just be, basically him. You'd get a hell of an ab workout, but that would be basically the only thing that you would be able to get.
Yeah.
My only insult that I could have back to him is that I'm personally 6'3", so like if he were to give me any crap, I'd just be like, Kevin, look at you. And look at me. That's like the only thing I could really say to him. But yeah, he is absolutely great. And you mentioned Jennifer Aniston, so I do have to say that obviously everyone's seen Friends, but if you remember who played Ross's first wife in Friends, the lesbian Carol.
Oh, yeah, of course.
She just started a charity, so I emailed her and said, hey, I run this podcast, yada, yada. I'd love to have you come on to talk about, your charity. And then she said, yeah, absolutely. So November 12th, she's coming on. I said, by the way, you do know that I'm going to ask you a lot of Friends questions, right? And she said, oh, yeah, I get that all the time. So, I'm preparing, a list of, 20 of the best Friends questions, and I'm just going to hurl them at her and get them asked. I'm just going to be like, yeah, was Jennifer Aniston really as great as she? Just stuff like that. So we'll really see. So, yeah, and Jennifer Aniston, if I could ever get her on the show, yeah, I would just stop podcasting. I'd just be like, okay, I'm done. I've done the best that I can do. Time to retire.
You can't get better than that. No.
Oh, absolutely 100%. So now moving on to our fourth question. What is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Eggs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same here.
We go through eggs like they're going like China goes through rice.
Yep, absolutely. I always got to say that as well. So now, what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know if they met you in person?
Oh, man. Go ahead.
A lot of people are surprised that I'm a lot more goofy and funnier than what I come off on my Instagram.
I think the thing that, a lot of people are initially shocked on is that I'm shorter. I'm 5'8". So in my pictures and whatnot, I look like a bigger guy, which I am, somewhat larger, but I'm, I think just the whole feet of the picture makes me look bigger than I am. So I'm not a very big guy, 5'8". So
yeah.
6'3". I wish I had that height.
Yeah, yeah. I believe me. I pray and I thank God every single night that I'm just like, thank you, Lord, for all of this. But yeah, I get that. I mean, my face isn't as good as yours, so I think it's an even trade. We were kind of both dealt kind of separate things for sure.
Hey, they do face training.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They can't give me 7 inches.
That's true. That's true. That is true. Now that I think about it. But now moving on, what is one item that you would die to have if it went up for auction?
One item diet ad. Does it have to be something that exists?
No, I've never had that question asked, but yeah, it can be something that doesn't exist. I mean, we had one lady say Channing Tatum, and I was like, okay, that's a whole different issue, but
I think that, when I think auction, I think of, authentic pieces,
Mhm.
relics, things that, are hard to find, maybe one-to-one type of in the world things. I would say a time machine would be awesome. If time machine came, I'd be all over that.
I would say like a genie bottle.
If that was
real.
We both got very
yeah.
outside the box there, I guess. So.
Well, then with your Genie ball, you could just wish for a time machine, though.
Yeah.
So problem solved. Yeah.
Yeah. She won it there.
Got it all done. Yeah. So now, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Mine would be Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say we both just watched Bobby Flay every night. Bobby Flay.
I mean,
yeah, well, that's because we love food, but I wouldn't consider that a TV series. I think the last one for me was Dexter. Or actually, I guess I didn't finish The Walking Dead, so Dexter in its totality was the last one for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, surprisingly, I watched New Girl, and I thought I wouldn't like it, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought.
I watched the first season of that.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Probably Smallville.
Ooh, that's the first Smallville we've had.
I'm a Seinfeld fan.
Ooh. Believe it or not, that is the first time we've all... Okay, so out of the 100 guests that I've had that have asked that question, that is the first Seinfeld out there. So we got a Seinfeld on the board. So what is your guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Guilty pleasure movie?
I would say my guilty pleasure movie is either... There's probably two. It would be Beauty and the Beast or Harry Potter.
Man, I'm just such a movie buff. That stumps me. That's like asking me what my favorite song is. My initial thought, again, I just got to go with that, was Tommy Boy. I love a Chris Farley fan. I got to go. I love Chris Farley or Rush Hour 2. Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker combination. Yep. Those are classics. Night at the Roxbury is also a good one.
Oh, yes.
Go on, give me a bunch.
Absolutely.
Those classics are up there.
Mine personally, my ultimate date night movie, Princess Bride. That's my guilty pleasure movie. You play Princess Bride, that's a good evening with anyone that you're with. So that is my go-to. I mean, I can quote it a lot. I really, really enjoy it. So what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Probably chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, something chocolatey, but kind of something with the caramel in there. So some type of mousse track chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. For me, you get me a cookie dough blizzard from Dairy Queen, and I'm good for the rest of the night. I limit myself to once a month because, you got to stay in shape. And then during the summer, once every 2 weeks. But, I always have to indulge every once in a while. So what is one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding or health and fitness in general if you had the all-seeing power to do so?
I would probably change the way that it's judged, probably, or the rules of which it's judged. I feel like there's a lot of conflict of interest nowadays with judging and the people competing.
If I'm specifically talking about, bodybuilding and the competition prep, I would agree with that. Just the subjectivity involved is a tough dynamic to really get around. But the more you can control in that aspect from a judging standpoint, not controlling the destiny entirely would be definitely beneficial or a great thing to add to the actual sport of making it a sport. The art of posing and the skill involved in that is incredible, and I have so much respect for that. But the subjectivity involved in a lot of cases can sometimes take away and water down the beauty of the sport. So, again, being a sports guy my whole life, that objectivity in sports, you either lift more than me or you don't. You tackled me or you didn't. It's a hard thing to swallow at that point. But again, you're training and you're prepping so much and putting in so much mental commitment, physical commitment. You just, no matter what, that dynamic and environment is so respectable, and the people that are able to pose and show themselves so well is so respectable. It's a tough dynamic when they're on stage and they're not given the, sometimes what's rightfully theirs. So.
And our last question for the questionnaire is, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice that you would give them?
What was I thinking with my hairstyle?
What was your hairstyle back then?
Man, I have curly hair, and I just let that thing grow. So it was like, I looked like Caesar, but not as put together. Yeah, I'm just such a clean cut guy, and I used to rock hairstyles that I think of Seth Rogen, and I'm like, yup, we have the same hairstyle, dude. And that to me it's not a compliment. No offense, Seth Rogen, you're awesome, you're hilarious, but at the same time, just for me, it wasn't the best look. I see pictures and I'm like, yeah, man, it's tough to look at. It's tough.
I would go back. So when I was 18 would have been when I was probably the most unhealthiest I've ever been in my life, as I talked about in like my freshman or senior year of high school. And I feel like if I wouldn't have went through that and let myself get to that point of being a little bit chunky and pretty out of shape and unathletic, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I would probably tell myself to just keep going in the direction that I was going. I did what I had to do. I had to get 2 jobs at that time. So I would probably just tell myself to keep going, because I know eventually that I would look back and see myself in the mirror and wouldn't be happy, when I was playing volleyball in college and I was all red and puffy faced and it was embarrassing. So I'd either experience it then or be experiencing that now. Who knows? But I'm thankful it happened when I was younger and able to find, the motivation to want to change that. So.
And lastly, before we wrap things up here, I always love to sort of ask, one of the things when I started working out and lifting a lot in college, one of the negative things that I found out when I started, putting on a lot of muscle, getting stronger, is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. You're going to get asked to do a lot of stuff. My whole entire summer is basically scheduled on weekends where, hey, Ryan, come over and help me lift this chair, this couch that I'm moving. Have you guys had to deal with similar things like that, and how have you sort of dealt with it?
I think sometimes he gets that, but I think we actually get asked just due to the fact that he owns a gym and I do bikini competing. I feel like we get asked for a lot more advice on diet and working out. I feel like a lot of people will hit us up and be like, hey, will you come lift with me today? Because they need that extra motivation from us to be there to lift with them. I feel like our lifting schedule kind of evolves around our friends and close group at the gym. So we're always sacrificing our time when we want to lift versus, especially him, versus when his friends can be there to lift. So he's always going to be there, not necessarily to move someone's chair, but to motivate, his 10 close friends that are at the gym to lift. Or I'm constantly answering questions about diets and stuff from our members at the gym girls who want to lose weight and things like that.
Well, like I said, I'm 5'8", so putting stuff on shelves or getting stuff down, I get to sneak out of that aspect. But yeah, maybe moving couches and stuff. Yeah. I've definitely been asked my fair share of times with that. That's just inevitable. Like she said, I think we go out, we go somewhere. People either recognize us or know who we are, which not saying that we're, celebrities in the area by any means. But again, I think that the gym has gained a little bit of wind and people know about it, or at least, childhood friends or something, we reconnect. And of course, it's inevitable that we're going to have the conversation about, fitness related stuff, workouts, like send me a workout or like help me with this, instead of me just being able to kind of enjoy myself and be out. That's probably the thing where it's like, you look good, you take the sacrifice a little bit of having people constantly wanting to ask for advice, but we're willing to take on that challenge, I think.
And what is the address of your gym in case anyone that's in the Cleveland area is listening right now, if they want to go and check it out?
Absolutely. So again, it's Ohio Sports and Fitness. It's on the east side of Cleveland in Willoughby. The address is 36540 Biltmore Place in Willoughby.
Well, we can't thank both of you guys enough for coming on. I mean, it was really, really great. I mean, it was a big surprise when you came in. It was really, really awesome. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, go follow both these guys on Instagram. I'll leave all their links down below. Go check out Bang Energy for sure. I highly recommend their drinks. They're actually really great. And I'm not just blowing smoke up anyone. It actually is a really good drink, and I drink a lot of them. It's very, very good. So, and also go and check out his gym, like I said below. Links down below. And is there anyone that you guys would like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up here?
Shout out my best friend. She's starting her fitness journey. She just re-signed up for Instagram, and I saw that she started following some fitness people, especially fitness like moms. She just had a baby and she's ready to start her weight loss journey, and I'm glad that she's using social media in a positive way to kind of document and follow people that inspires her. So way to go, Nikki. I'm proud of you.
Just shout out all those that support local businesses. You know, I think in any way possible, I think that's an incredible thing. I show a lot of respect for that. So shout out to all you guys that follow and support local businesses. Continue to do so.
Not go Irish football. They're undefeated.
Hey, that's, you know, we don't want to, you know, I look at the Irish. I agree. But at the same time, I know, you know, years past, we've been in great situations, and come the Alabamas of the world.
Ooh, yep.
Things start to go south. So we'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. So
absolutely. And again, we can't thank these guys enough. Links down below. Really, really enjoyed talking to you guys. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.